And happy Wednesday, Juniper Avenue. It is very good to be here with you all on this happy Wednesday day. I'm excited to um, sort of take a break in the middle of the week and hang out with you all and talk about the Bible and talk to each other and pray for each other. I really enjoy the Wednesday prayer meetings and the Wednesday morning prayer line because I think we get to talk to each other on a different way than we do, when it's just, from the pulpit on Saturdays. So I'm really excited, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to do something a little bit different today, and I'm excited to do that with you all as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's pray, and let's go ahead and get into it. Dear Lord, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to spend some time with each other, to walk with you, to talk with you, to learn more about you, to read the word together, to pray with each other, to pray for each other, to be prayed for. We appreciate the fellowship of believers that have gathered together at Juniper Avenue over the years. Lord, I pray that you bless this gathering, bless all those who are going to be joining the call. Bless everyone under the sound of my voice, Father. I pray that the words spoken tonight will be glorifying to your name. I pray that the prayers prayed tonight will be the ones that are in accordance with your will. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. Amen. Okay, so as I am going along, I have the chat sort of pulled up next to me. So please, by all means, as we're talking, if you have a prayer request or you have a comment about what we're talking about, please, by all means, put it in the chat. And I think I have it pulled up and I'll be able to see it. And it's always more fun with comments. If you don't want to comment, that's fine. You can, I can just talk, but it's always more fun with comments. And today I want to do something a little bit different, a little bit unusual. I've never really done this for a prayer meeting before, but I've had a couple people from church ask me about my sermon preparation process. And I've had a couple people from church ask me about doing a Bible study and doing a Bible study with you all. And so I'm going to use this space to sort of do both for the first half of this. As you know, I like to do the prayers at the end as the main topic and the main thing of prayer meeting. But at the beginning, for like a devotional thought, I want to talk to each other. I want to talk to you all, and I want to just read the Bible with you all. And I want to sort of walk through how I approach texts and what I'm looking for. And it'll sort of be like sort of a Bible study-esque type thing. And that's why, comments are great. So as we're reading, as things stick out to you, as things jump out to you, by all means, let me know, put it in the chat, and I will let you all know what I'm seeing in the text as well. And I think it'll be a good time. So we're going to read together. I asked my wife what we should do, and she said Ruth. So we're going to read together Ruth chapter 1. I'll read it out loud. I'll give y'all some time to turn. And this is sort of, I know we've read the story of Ruth before. I'm sure it's not a new story, but I haven't read it recently. I don't have any notes prepared on it. I'm sort of approaching it from a first impression as if, and who knows, I actually might kind of want to do a sermon on Ruth at some point. So this is sort of how we get from first reading of the Bible, first chapter, to starting to build out what might come through in a sermon, what might stick out to me as something that's important to me in my life versus something that I would want to share in a pulpit, right? Because, and I've said this before, before anything gets preached, before any text gets preached, I have to like feel it first. God has to speak to me before he allows me to go out and speak to y'all. And so, yeah, this is sort of the ground, from the ground up. This is what we do. So for those of you who just joined, we're reading Ruth chapter 1, and this is sort of a Bible study slash sermon building, reading text slash conversation. It's just a conversation. I don't know where this is going to go. So let's see. So I will go ahead and read in your hearing. Follow along with me. Ruth chapter 1. The text says, "In the days when the judges ruled, There was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and two sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the names of his two sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephraites from the Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the country of Moab, and remained there. And we're only going to do this. We're going to do this like a little bit at a time, uh, because when we're doing this, we're reading slow. So those are the first two verses. And so the question is, what's happening in these first two verses? What's interesting? What questions do we have in the text? And right away, the first thing I'm seeing is that so we get a temporal placing, right? In the days when Judges ruled. That makes sense, right? Judges is the previous book, First and Second Samuel. The next books, that's where we get the king. So temporally, the book of Ruth takes place somewhere in the middle of the book of Judges. I don't know where, but that's where it is. And it says that a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his two sons, because there was a famine in the land. Now that's sort of interesting to me. I don't know if it's interesting to y'all, and that's something I might want to take a note on. Is I see that he went to Elimelech, took his family to Moab because it was famine, but it seems like this was kind of like a choice only he made, right? Because if there's famine, it's not like a personal famine, right? Famine means that nobody has food, right? We're all we all hungry, we all starving. But Elimelech, it doesn't seem like from the text, I'm not seeing that any other families made this choice to leave Judah. Just Elimelech did. Elimelech and Naomi, and he took his two sons with him. And so one of the things I'm immediately thinking of is, did he need to go? What would have happened if he didn't go? Like, would they have died if they didn't go? What would have happened? Did God want him to go to Moab? That's sort of really what I'm wondering right away. Did God want him to go to Moab? I'm not seeing any judgment in the text one way or the other, right? This is one of the things you can look for. I don't see anything. It just says, this was a man and he did it. And one of the things I'm noticing right away is, this is the time of judgment. So there's no king, right? So there's no one perhaps he can ask to say, hey, what should I do? Where should I, is this right? Is this of God? I don't know, what prophets or authority figures are around. This is just a man trying to save his family. So the fact that he makes this decision to go to Moab, I'm immediately wondering if God was in this decision. Is he following God by going to Moab, or is he expressing a lack of faith by going to Moab? Like maybe he should have just stuck it out in Israel. So that's immediately sort of what I'm thinking about. And I don't know yet. I don't know if we will know, but that's first. So okay, so that's verse 1. We have Elimelech, we have the name of his wife Naomi, the names of his two sons Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephraites from Bethlehem and Judah. I won't do it here, but just so you all know, when I do this, I like to look up names. I like to look up what the names mean and the history of the names. And I don't know this, I have to Google it. I just go to Google, what does Naomi mean? What does Mahlon mean? Because sometimes, especially in the Old Testament, what people are named often signifies things about their character. So that'd be something immediately I would want to do, but I'll keep going for the sake of this. But that's something that I think if you're interested in really studying the Bible, don't just read past these titles, like try and get into it. What does this mean? Okay. So verse 2, the name of the man was Elimelech, the name of his wife Naomi, the names of his two sons Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephraites from Bethlehem and Judah. They went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died. She was left with her two sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of the one was Orpah, the name of the other Ruth, and they lived there about 10 years. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot happening, right? There's a lot happening right away. So first, I'm pretty sure there's some texts in Deuteronomy about not marrying Moabite women. I don't think I made that up. This is once again, this is not something that I would just do on the stream, but from my own notes, I'm wondering if there's any Levitical, Deuteronomical laws about not marrying Moabites that these folks might have broken by doing this. Maybe, maybe not. And just because it's in there doesn't mean they know it, right? This is the land of judges. It's chaos. Laws have been lost, right? There's this whole episode in Samuel, I think, or Kings, where they find the little boy King Josiah finds the book of the law, and they're all happy because they finally found the rules. So I don't know. Just because it's written down doesn't mean they have access to it. Doesn't mean they know it's illegal, whatever that means for them. But I'm wondering because I think something is telling me that there was some Deuteronomical laws about not marrying Moabite women in particular, and I'm seeing Elimelech dies there, leaving Naomi with her two sons. And then they took Moabite wives. That's interesting to me, right? So the fact that Elimelech dies, the whole point of Elimelech going to Moab was to save him and his family from this famine, right? And I mentioned earlier, I was wondering if is this an expression of faith? Is this an expression of faithlessness, right? Did God tell him to go to Moab and he went? Or did he God say nothing and he just fled to Moab? But all the other Israelites were like, we're just gonna chill here. And the fact that he dies there, it's still not judgment. We're not seeing anything in text like, and God was upset with Elimelech that he went. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We don't see that. But it does seem to suggest that maybe there was something wrong with going to Moab in particular, the fact that he died there. But it does say that they stayed there like 10 years. What kind of famine lasts 10 years? Like even the famine in Joseph's day, right? 7 years of feasting followed by 7 years of famine. That's a long time. 10 years. At that point, you might just be staying there. I don't know if they're planning to come back, right? Like, so Elimelech dies. And here's the other thing I'm seeing too, right? So Elimelech dies, verse 3. To me, if I was Naomi and I have my two kids and my husband dies in this strange land, I might be like, maybe it's time to go back home. Maybe it's time to head back to where we were coming from. I'm not so sure that I would have stayed in Moab after my husband died if I'm Naomi and I have two sons. But she stayed. That's interesting. I don't know what I think about that. That's interesting. I don't know if that's I don't know. I don't know. So she stayed, and then her two sons married Moabite women, and we get, famously Orpah and Ruth. So not only are they staying in Moab after the husband dies, the sons are starting to settle in, right? This doesn't feel like a flight anymore. This feels like immigration, right? This feels like they have moved to Moab, not fled to Moab. I guess fled in the beginning, but now it feels like they moved there. This starts to seem a lot more permanent. Now that they've been there 10 years and they took Moabite wives. And another thing too, right? Ages. We don't know the ages of these sons. Like, so how did the sons spend most of their life in Moab, right? So we don't know how old they are when they moved, but like imagine these kids are like 9 years old and they're there from 9 to 19. You know what I'm saying? At that point, they're kind of more Moabitish than Israelite. At that point, I don't know. They seem to be more assimilated. They seem to be more assimilated. So I'm just this is very interesting to me. This is very interesting to me. So let's keep going. So they took Moabite wives, Orpah and Ruth, and once again, I would probably stop here and do some name definitional things just to see what we can pull from the names. But we'll keep going. When they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, so that the woman was left without her two sons and her husband. Right? So this is the classic setup of how Ruth begins. She and her family go out there, her husband dies, her two sons marry Moabite women, and then they die. So it's just left with the three women. Let's go to verse 6. Then she started to return with her daughters-in-law from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had considered his people and given them food. Okay. For she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had considered his people and given them food. That's a little bit tricky, right? I guess the text is implying that like she hears, hey, there's food, and she leaves immediately. That's probably a fair reading, but it's also possible that like she had heard, like maybe she knew already. I guess what I'm trying to say is I can't tell from that verse when Naomi understood that there was food in Israel in comparison to when she left to go back to Israel. It's possible that she heard that there was food in Israel on Tuesday, right? And then left on a Wednesday. But it's also possible that she had heard there was food in Israel and they had been known for a long time. And now they're just going back because of the deaths of her children. Um, I don't think the text is clear one way or the other about which way that cuts. And you want to be careful about reading too much into something that could go one way or the other. Like I think whenever I see these points in the text where like I'm not sure if she had known or she just knew, I try not to like settle too much into one reality or the other, right? They're both possible and they're both fine. They're both, very viable readings of the text. So we just keep them both alive in our mind. It's possible that Naomi knew for a long time that they had food and left after just because the kids died, or it's possible that she just heard, she just found out, rumor mill just got there that there was food in Israel, and now she is ready to go. So I keep both possibilities alive in my mind. I'm not discounting anything. So she starts to return with her daughters-in-law. So she set out from the place where she had been living. This is verse 7. So she set out from the place where she had been living, she and her two daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah. So this feels like a very dangerous trip. And for those who are just joining, we're in Ruth chapter 1, sort of just reading together, Bible study, talking together. This feels like a very dangerous journey. And this is something else I'd want to look up. How far is it from Moab to Judah? I don't know. I have no idea. It kind of feels far though. That's not like, Loma Linda to Redlands. That feels like a trek. And it's just three women traveling alone by themselves all on that way. That seems very dangerous to me, right? Like there are some realities of traveling without the protection of swordsmen and guards and all of that. That this feels like a very dangerous journey. That she and Naomi might be an old lady by now. I'm not entirely sure how old she is. Elderly lady, vintage lady. Um, so we have potentially an elderly senior citizen and two young women. I don't know, Chief. I don't know. Feels dangerous. Feels dangerous. I'm uncomfortable. So they start to go on their way to land of Judah. Now, this is important, right? Because I think this is one of those things that I've misread in Ruth immediately. So verse 8 says, "But Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, go back each of you to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me." That's interesting. Okay, so a couple of things. So first, I've always assumed that like Naomi has this conversation with Ruth and Orpah before she leaves, right? Like, hey, I'm headed out. I'm going back to Judah and Bethlehem. Y'all can stay here if you'd like. Go back to your mom's house, whatever, whatever. But I'm out. That's not what happened according to the text. The text is very, very clear in verse 6 and 7 that they start the journey, right? They are on the path, the three of them walking, right? There's no cars, there's no trains. They are walking back to Judah. And at some point during this walk back to Judah, Naomi kind of turns to them and was like, actually, I'm good. I'll go along by myself, senior citizen woman. Y'all go back home to your mother's house. Something about that isn't something about that isn't sitting well with me, because if she really was like, don't travel with me, wouldn't the more considerate thing to do would to tell them that before they left on this journey, right? Like I don't know how long they traveled, and it's not in the text. So I don't know. Maybe they were walking together for a couple hours, maybe a couple days, right? Maybe a week, maybe 10 minutes. We don't know. But at some point, they left, they're walking, and Naomi is like, hey, actually, y'all head on home. I don't I'm wondering about, we know from the text, right? Later, Naomi is kind of like a schemer, right? She got some schemes, she got some plots. She's not some feeble old lady who don't know what's going on, right? She's very much with it, very much able to emotionally manipulate situations, right? Um, I'm wondering, like, maybe she didn't really want them to go, but maybe she felt bad. Like, I'm wondering if there's some sort of internal tension in herself when she says this, because if she really wanted them to stay, she should have told them to stay before they left, before she left. But maybe she really does feel bad about taking them out of their country and they ain't got no man and nothing like that. So maybe this is her sort of. I'm seeing it a little bit of an internal war here. Y'all can tell me in the comments if you think I'm very off, but I'm seeing a little bit of an internal war within Naomi because she's not telling them at the most considerate time that I don't want you to come. She's letting them journey with her for some period of time. And only after that period of time goes by is now Naomi like, actually, y'all can stay. Like at that point, it's kind of like, of course I'm coming. Like I already walked. Like, come on. If y'all and Ruth and Orpah, if I already walked with you 10 miles, like, bro, I'm not, come on. I'm not, excuse me. I'm not turning around now. Like, let's just keep going at this point, right? Um, Number one, why are we sending grandma, mama, senior citizen lady to make this journey off by herself? Number two, she wants to send us back to make this journey back by ourselves, right? It's just so much, it's so unsafe. And so it's not like I'm not taking Naomi seriously here, because we're gonna read like she's very much wants them to, tries very hard verbally to get them to go back. But I am curious about why she waited. I'm curious about why she waited. Maybe even suspicious. Definitely curious, maybe suspicious about why she waited to tell Ruth and Orpah to go back. If this isn't not evidence of some internal conflict that she's having about their presence. So the other thing that caught my eye at the end of verse 8, Naomi says, "May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me." That "with the dead" phrase kind of caught me off guard. My first assumption is this is about Naomi's, dead children, their dead husbands with the dead, dealt kindly with the dead. But that's kind of like changing the verse to say, like, you dealt kindly with my sons while they were alive, not necessarily you dealt kindly like with the dead. Like, this could be referring to some type of funeral, mourning, grieving. You were supposed to treat the dead with respect. Maybe Moabite have their own funeral process, grieving process. I'm not sure, but that's very interesting. So that's something else. When I find these phrases that I'm not quite sure what to do with, these are the places where I like to really do deep dives and research. So I would highlight that phrase, "dealt kindly with the dead and with me." It may be just as simple as she's talking about her dead sons. But maybe not. Maybe not. That's one of those things where I don't know. So I would, if you're interested in further study, take a look at that on your free time and let me know what you find. Dealt kindly with the dead and with me. All right, Naomi still talking. Verse 9. "The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you, in the house of your husband." Then she kissed them and they wept aloud. That's weird, right? That's kind of odd. "The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you, in the house of your husband." So again, right, I'm seeing a little bit of odd. Man, now I'm like wondering what the Hebrew says, because how Naomi is phrasing this isn't quite working for me. So first she says, you may the Lord deal kindly with you as you dealt with the dead. And now she says, "May the Lord grant that you may find security in the house of your husband." But their husband is dead. Naomi is the only bit of his house left, and she's leaving. So she's talking about may you find security in a future husband. May you remarry and find happiness. Like, I think that's probably the most natural understanding of what's happening here. But y'all see, like she's wording things very oddly. She's talking about in the house of your husband, like they currently have a house and a husband waiting on them, and they do not. And she's talking about dealing kindly with the dead, like that's a current thing. And like it's almost as if Oh man, I don't want to get too deep. I don't like making too big, putting too much meaning into small text, right? That's something, a lot of meaning should come from a lot of text, small meaning from small text. But it's almost like Naomi is so deep in her grief that she is somehow like in the past, in the present, in the future, all at once. Like time is sort of blurred for her. You deal kindly with the dead and find sanctuary in the house of your husband, but she's also acknowledging that their husbands are dead. It's like time isn't really real for her right now. That's the vibes that I'm getting. And this is something else you could do is when you find verses that are kind of written a little bit strangely, read them in a whole bunch of different translations, or read them in New Living Translation, King James Version, NIV, NSRV, which I like. Pick 10, 5, 10 different versions so you can start to see how English translators are dealing with this text, because that's a little bit odd. Naomi seems to have lost track of time, or at least in the text, it doesn't seem like she's like, yeah, the past, the present, and the future, they're all sort of blurred together in this very strange way that makes me sad, and it makes me feel her sadness even more. She seems very grieved right now, and the fact that her sense of time is a little bit jumbled in the text. Hmm. I don't know. It makes me sad. Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud. There has to be some type of symbolic meaning in that kiss, right? Maybe like kiss like means it's serious. Like I'm thinking immediately like Judas kissing Jesus, right? You betray me with a kiss. I'm wondering what all the types of different meanings kisses could symbolize in relationships in ancient Israel. It could like that could be like a kiss goodbye, right? That's sort of, we want to immediately say it's a kiss goodbye, but we want to be careful about reading too much of our own culture into their culture. That might not be a kiss goodbye. It could be like a kiss of finality, like I mean what I said, so I'm kissing you, or it could be like, I don't know, but that's something else to look at. Like what is this kiss? What is this, just a kiss goodbye, or is there something else happening here? And after she kissed him, they started weeping. So maybe it is a kiss goodbye, but maybe not, right? Because they're saying to her, verse 10, no, they said to her, right? That's cool. They said to her, no, we will return with you to your people, right? And I think I didn't expect that. In my memory of this story, I know Orpah turns and goes back, and Ruth goes with Naomi. But I didn't realize that both Orpah and Ruth at first rejected Naomi telling them to turn around. Like they're both like about that life. They're both saying, "We want to go with you." It's not just Ruth saying it. They said, "We will return with you to your people." So they're very sad about this. Naomi's sort of shunning them. Ruth and Orpah don't want that. So verse 11, but Naomi said, turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that they may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters. Go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I should have a husband tonight and bear sons, would you wait for them until they were grown? Would you then refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me. Wow, there's so much here. So I'm immediately this refrain of my daughters, my daughters, my daughters. Oh man, it's clear, I think. Repetition. She really cares for Orpah and Ruth. Their friendship, their presence, their relationship matters deeply to Naomi. I don't know why that refrain really gets me. Like she's called them my daughters, I think 3 times, right? Once in verse 11, once in verse 12, again in verse 13. And I don't think she said that in her first. Yeah, so at first, when she first speaks to them in verse 8, she says, go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you might find security, each of you, in the house of God. So she doesn't use this refrain of my daughters the first time she talks to them, right? It's like now she's pleading. So now, so I was talking about this internal conflict. And now I really do think it's internal. Like maybe she really didn't want them to come this whole way. Maybe Naomi's like gathering the courage to tell them to turn around this whole time. Maybe that's why she doesn't tell them at first. I don't know. I'm still a little bit messed up by that. But this refrain, my daughters, my daughters, my daughters. It feels now. Remember what I said. Naomi does have a little emotional manipulation to her, but this feels very genuine to me. This feels like begging and pleading. And even look. Oh wow. Okay. Huh. Okay. Now we're cooking. Right. Why is she telling them to go back? Right. Because in verse 12, she says, "Turn back, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I should have a husband tonight, bear sons, would you wait for them?" Naomi is only seeing herself as, why would you walk with me if I'm useless to you? Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Naomi senses a uselessness to her. And because she senses and she perceives herself to be useless to Ruth and Orpah, she does not want them to accompany her anymore. Oh my gosh. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah. Yeah. Even if I thought there was hope, even if I should have a husband and bear sons, would you wait until they were grown? Naomi is saying, oh man, sorry, the tech is messing up. I want to make sure I'm right here. There we go. I hope this is still going. This is so strange. Okay, sorry. And okay, I'm back. I think I fixed whatever the other issue was. But yeah, Naomi is saying, since I can't bear children, since I can't bear sons, why would you want to come with me? Why would you even want to spend time with me if I can't bear sons for you to marry? And yeah, this might have to turn into a sermon at some point. I'm gonna have to cook with this because how real is that, right? To feel like I don't know why, if I can't do anything for you, if I can't be productive for you, if I can't be useful, then why would you want to be around me? Right? Naomi is saying that you should go home because I can't do anything more for you. She's not understanding that they might just want to be with her to be with her. She's not grasping the concept that they might want to be in her presence because they love her, not what she can do for them, not for the children she might bear them, but they love her enough and they value her enough that her presence and her love and her being is sufficient for them to want to journey all the way from Moab to Judah just for her. She's not accepting that reality. She's not living in that reality. She's living in a reality of, I can't do anything for you, so let me be. And I mean, I don't want to. I've had conversations with friends of mine who have struggled with like this idea of, if I can't literally do something for you, I don't want to be around. And I'm like, I don't base friendships off of productivity. Like, this isn't capitalism, right? Like, just be my friend. Let's just talk. Let's just talk. Let's just be present in one another's lives and let's, commiserate together and celebrate together. Who needs to do what is talk about doing? But they sometimes people really struggle with that. And I'm seeing that struggle here in Naomi, this inability to see herself as being worth traveling with and talking to and living with, if that's all there is to their lives. And it's kind of immediately heartbreaking, I think. That's kind of immediately heartbreaking. Mm, 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 mm. No, my daughters, it has been far, this is verse 13. No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me. That feels very Jobian, right? It feels very Jobian, both in terms of my life is terrible right now because God has done this to me. God is punishing me. The hand of the Lord is against me. But also in this like kind of narcissistic tunnel vision of suffering, right? We talked about a few weeks ago Job and Job's wife, and how Job doesn't understand that his wife is mourning too, and his wife is grieving too, and his wife is also wrestling with what happened and has theological questions about what happened. And Job isn't really trying to sit in that space with his wife. All he sees is his own suffering. And there's a sort of a flavor of that here with Naomi when she says, "It has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me." Like just by pure law, like yeah, Naomi lost her sons and her husband, but these young women also have lost their husband, and now they're leaving the only place they know. This sort of grief comparison, I don't know what use it does. And it's a very natural human instinct, I think, when we're going through something bad to compare grief, to start wondering who is suffering the most, like to win what the oppression Olympics, right? Like who is having the worst time. It's a very natural human instinct, but I don't know what good it does us, and I don't know what good it's doing Naomi, and I certainly know that it's not helpful for Orpah or Ruth to hear like their own pain sort of diminished, this diminishing comparison. That's not good for them. Hmm. Okay, verse 14, and we'll go a couple more minutes and then we'll go into the prayer. Then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother. Ah, that kiss again. See, there's something with this. Then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. So she said, verse 15, "See, your sister in law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister in law." Okay, so I'm seeing, so here Orpah sort of says, "Okay, I'll turn around, I'll leave." And so she makes this journey back alone. And so so this is something, one of the things I really try to do in my when I read is to focus on characters that are at the edges, on the margins of the story. I know this story is actually about Ruth and Naomi, and the rest of the book is about Ruth and Naomi. We really don't see Orpah again, but I feel pressed to sort of center Orpah in this moment. Orpah is a Moabite. She lost her husband. She's traveling to Judah with a foreign land with her mother-in-law, and her mother-in-law is pushing her away. "Go home, my daughter, please go home, go home. I can't do anything for you. Go home, go home." Orpah resists at first. "No, I'm going to walk with you. I'm in this with you." And then Naomi says, "No, seriously, please, my daughter, go home, go home." Orpah turns and leaves. She weeps, she kisses her mother, and she leaves. And I'm wondering, what is that walk back to Moab like for Orpah? What is that like for her? What is she thinking about? How long is it, right? Like we once again we don't know how far they had gone. Maybe it's a 6 hour walk back, 12 hour walk back, couple day long walk back, just her. That what is she thinking about? Does she regret leaving? Is she missing Naomi? Does she feel forced out and pushed away? Does she feel unloved? Like does she feel, I'm wondering if Orpah feels rejected in this moment. Her husband dies. She's demonstrating her commitment to Naomi. She's walking back with Naomi to a land that she's never been to in her life. I don't know if she speaks the language, all of these things. And in the middle of the journey, right? This isn't at the beginning. Sometime in the middle of the journey, Naomi says, "Actually, I don't want you to come with me no more." That feeling of rejection for Orpah, to go from the loss of her husband And then also, right, the separation of her sister-in-law who shares the grief, who shares the understanding of what it means to lose a husband, and her mother-in-law. Like Orpah just lost a lot of community just now on the hope that she can find something of hers back in Moab. I hope she found what she was looking for in Moab. I hope she got back and was able to find some community. I don't know how they would have received her, right? Oh, hey, oh, you back already? You back so soon? Oh, you couldn't make it. They left you. They did you like they may maybe they're happy to see her. You know, I could imagine some type of oh Orpah, you're back. We love you. Welcome, welcome. I could also imagine some oh you thought you was so good you was gonna leave us and now you're back after your husband died. Yeah, no, nobody messing with you no more. Like this could have gone a whole bunch of different ways, and I'm sure maybe that's what she's thinking about on the way back is all the different ways she might be received from her family? Would they scorn her? Would they love on her? Would they welcome her? Would they dismiss her? I really hope Orpah was able to make her own peace because we don't see her again in this text. The last we know, the last we see of her is her kissing Naomi and I guess leaving. But she's shown nothing but loyalty thus far. And she's dealing with her own grief too. So I feel for Orpah. I feel for Orpah. I really do. So verse 15. See, man, I go back and forth with this Naomi thing. See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. Naomi is really a master manipulator. Like I like, and I also feel like she's being genuine. But it's like she'll take any thing. She'll take any piece of information and weaponize it to get the outcome that she wants. Right. So at first she tells them, hey, y'all should go home. They're like, no. Then she says, my daughter goes home. My daughters go home. All right. That gets Orpah. Ruth is still here. And now she's saying, look, Orpah just left. Orpah's out. You leave too. Like, they're like, y'all see this? Like, I'm not trying to be too harsh with her. I'm just reading the text, but I'm seeing like, I don't know. Y'all know there are just some people out there who you give them any type of leverage against you, and they are going to pry and pry and pry at that thing. And I mean, this fits Naomi's character. Right? We know the scheming that she does later to get Ruth hooked up with Boaz and all this stuff, right? Naomi is very much a a schemer. Naomi is very much a schemer. Now, I think her grief is genuine here, right? Like she really does feel bad, but like it's almost like when she feels like she knows what's best, she will apply any type of pressure she can get her hands on in order to get the outcome that she thinks is best. Maybe that's what it is, right? It's not like when she thinks she knows what's best, she will do anything in her power and say anything to get the outcome that she thinks is the right outcome. That's what I'm seeing out of Naomi. Verse 16. But Ruth said, and these are like some of the more famous verses in the Bible. Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There I will be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you. Yeah, that's that devotion. And we're almost done here, so we're obviously not be able, maybe I don't know if we'll be able to get through the whole chapter, but that devotion that Ruth is showing, I think especially right. Naomi just finished saying in verse 13, y'all need to go because the hand of the Lord has turned against me. Oh my goodness. Naomi just finished saying, y'all need to go because the hand of the Lord has turned against me. That's verse 13. And in verse 16 says, Ruth says, where you go, I go, where you lodge, I lodge, your people, my people, your God, my God. Ruth is joining her. Oh, wow. Ruth is saying, I understand you believe your God is upset with you, is not even my God. He's not even upset with me. But because he's upset with you, I will join you in that position. Therefore, he's upset with me too. Right? Like at this point, Naomi is telling Ruth, God is against me. The Lord has turned his hand away from me. God is not on my side right now. And Ruth says, even so, your God is my God, and I am with you. That's ride or die. Wow. Because how many people will join in, right, when things are going good, right? How many people is going to join into your situation when they perceive you to be on a come up and they can kind of like ride the coattails and stay in the shadow and catch some of the success that's fallen off you? This is the exact opposite, right? Naomi is expressing a spiritual failure. You know, whether this is actual spiritual failure or not, that's not really the point, but she perceives it to be spiritual failure. She perceives God to be against her. She perceives the Lord's hand to be against her. And she speaks that failure to Ruth. And Ruth she hears that, she absorbs it, and she says, and that's going to be my God too. And I'm going to rock with you anyway. Your people, your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There I will be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from. Oh my goodness. Y'all see that? That's verse 17. May the Lord do thus to me. Sorry, may the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Ruth is saying, I understand, Naomi, that you're telling me the Lord is against you, right? And Ruth is seeing what that means. The Lord is against you. When Naomi says the Lord is against me, Naomi is saying, look at what I've lost. I've lost my husband and I've lost my sons. 2 sons, 3 deaths. Husband, 2 sons, 3 deaths. The Lord is against me. That's what this means. And Ruth says, not only will I join you in your spiritual humbling, though I don't have to, Ruth says, if I ever part from you, this spiritual failure that you're experiencing, this trauma that you believe is from God that you're experiencing, may the Lord do thus to me and more if I leave you. What? What? Oh, that's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Oh, man. Oh, wow. May the Lord, I see everything that's happened to you. I see all of this, what the Lord being against you has done to your life. I see the anguish that it has brought you. Even still, may the Lord do that to me and more if I leave you. Dang, that's how you get a book named after you in the Bible, yo. That's what love. What love. What tender devotion, dedication, and love that Ruth is displaying for Naomi. That's sick. Wow. And I don't mean sick like in a bad way. I'm impressed. That's yeah, verse 18. That's hilarious, right? When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. Like this is perfect ending, right? Naomi was like, dang. Like, what can you say to that? Right? What can you say to that? What can you say except, all right, like there's nothing left. She did everything. She told her to go. Ruth said no. Naomi said, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter, leave me. And Ruth said no. Naomi was like, the Lord's hand is against me. And Ruth said, okay, I hear that. Then his hand will be against me too. And it'll be worse for me if I leave you. There's nothing left. There's nothing left. There's nothing left. That's wow. Wow. I'm blown away by Ruth's devotion. Mercy. Okay, let's keep going. We have a few more verses here. Verse 19. The two of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. Once again, I don't know how far the length of the distance between Moab and Bethlehem is really nagging me a bit. That's definitely something I want to look up. How far was this walk? When they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women said, "Is this Naomi?" All right, let's stop there for a second. And see, this is why I started at the beginning. We don't really get a sense of whether God wanted Elimelech and Naomi to go to Moab or not. Because it's clear that not this is not a thing that everyone did. Everyone wasn't leaving Bethlehem and leaving Judah because of the famine. There were people who stayed. Should they have stayed? Right? Because they go back to town and everyone's there. Everyone's like, "What's up? What's up? What's up? Wow, Naomi, you left us. You're so different now, right?" I don't know, man. Maybe they should have stayed. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. All right. Anyway, is this Naomi? Verse 20. She said to them, "Call me no longer Naomi. Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt bitterly with me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has dealt harshly with me and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me?" So Naomi returned together with Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, who came back with her from the country of Moab. They came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. Yeah, we just said that Naomi feels very, very Jobian, very Job-esque here, right? Her little "call me no longer Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt me a bitter hand." It feels very Job, right? This, I don't know. It feels very, very Job to me. And furthermore, verse 21, I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Now, Naomi, you went away full. Okay, I see that. Yeah. The Lord brought you back empty? Empty. Not less, not smaller, empty, zero, nothing. Imagine you're Ruth and you hear Naomi say that. The Lord brought me back empty. After you just said, where you go, I go, where you lodge, I lodge, your people, your God, my God, where you die, I die. That's where I'll be buried. May the Lord do thus to me and more as well. You just got finished saying that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. You finally get to Bethlehem. Naomi runs up on the people who she ain't seen in a while. And they're like, "Naomi, where you been?" She's like, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, because I have nothing now." And you're Ruth. You're just like, "Oh, I'm nothing." I don't know. And this is what I'm saying. Naomi feels. I know the book is called Ruth. It doesn't feel like Ruth is the main character of this, right? It feels like Naomi is the main character. Naomi is the one taking all of the actions. I mean, yeah, well, Ruth decided to go with. I'm not saying Ruth is completely passive because clearly Ruth decides to go with Naomi, decides to stay with Naomi, right? So she makes a couple of decisions here. But Ruth chapter 1 at least is very much driven by the power of Naomi's emotions, her grief, which narrows her vision and doesn't really let her see anything except her grief. And I get it. Well, I can't even say I get it. She lost two sons and a husband. That's unimaginable pain and horror. I just wish she was a little bit more, you know, like I wish she acknowledged Ruth somewhere in here. And maybe Ruth is like super understanding, like, yeah, I get it. She left, when she says she came back empty, she's clearly talking about, her sons and her husband. But it's just like, man, like, I don't know, acknowledge that Ruth didn't have to do all this. And she came back with, "You're not empty, Naomi. You're not." And I guess, that's I guess where we'll end. We got through all of Ruth 1. I hope y'all like this. I had a fun time. I didn't see any comments, and that's I'm not shaming y'all for no comments. I just hope that on the restream, if there are comments on the YouTube, I hope there weren't comments that I didn't see because I'm on restream. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I just don't want to miss anything. I hope I don't miss anything. But I this grief that Naomi has is doing a couple of different things to her, right? We talked about in verse 8 and 9 that is doing something with her conception of time. You deal kindly with me like you dealt with the dead, but go now to the house of your husband. Naomi, none of this isn't that's not correct. Like, so I won't say she's hallucinating because clearly she knows her sons are dead, but it's like she's not chopping off time cleanly from past to present to future. It's all kind of mushing together. And then it's also preventing her from really seeing the beauty of what Ruth did. And so when she gets back to her people, she's not even acknowledging Ruth's presence. Like, Ruth isn't even there. If you read that and you didn't already know that Ruth was with her, you would have no idea that Ruth is in this text anymore, right? You would think Naomi came back literally alone. And what I'm taking away from this is Ruth has immense patience to hear these words and not react out of ego. I'm seeing the patience of Ruth to really sit in what Naomi is saying about her or the lack of acknowledgement and not take it personally and not let it fester inside of her, which is another huge, huge, huge example of like Ruth's character, that she is allowing this person to express grief in a way that's honestly probably pretty painful for her. Because Ruth is the one who really has nothing, right? And the only one person she thought she had is now not even acknowledging her. Ruth don't know these people. Ruth is in a strange land with strange folks, strange customs, strange habits, strange words, strange food. She's with her mother-in-law, and her mother's like, I don't even have anybody. And Ruth is kind of like, Ruth is the one who really doesn't have anything. But she's letting Naomi grieve and not taking these words personally in a way that feels respectful. Is that the word? Respectful? I don't know. Because another part of me wants to say, Ruth, you know, stand up for yourself. I just don't know if this is the moment for that. And I don't think it's the moment for that. It's complicated, right? And this is dealing with grief is complicated, man. When people are grieving, things that seem simple aren't simple anymore because there's so much underneath the surface. You have to be really careful about how you approach things. And then one last thing I want to point out, I think, and then we'll wrap this up. Verse 22. Naomi returned together with Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, who came back with her from the country of Moab. Repetition means things in the Bible. Repetition is meant to draw your eye and encourage thought. Y'all see how Ruth the Moabite, the fact that she's a Moabite is very highlighted in how this chapter ends. Naomi returned with Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, who came back with her from the country of Moab. Like, obviously, the Moabite from the country of Moab, right? It's like that we're really not supposed to forget that she is a Moabite, not just a foreigner, right? A Moabite in particular. And so when we first opened this Ruth 1, one of the things I said was I want to go back and see if there were any laws, prescriptions, rules about intermingling with Moabites, because I'm pretty sure there was. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure if I Googled Moabite and I put it in Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Numbers and just see what popped, I'm pretty sure I would see some type of prohibition about don't mess with Moabite women. In fact, now that I think about it, I'm actually pretty sure there's a situation in Numbers where some dudes were messing with Moabite women and like God had punished the whole camp of Israel or something. Like I'm pretty sure that happened. So what I'm saying is there's subtext, there's heft, there's weight behind the text really wanting us to understand that Ruth is a Moabite now living in Judah. Like that's really important for the text. And you can't really get the power of Ruth without really internalizing the relationship between the Israelites and the Moabites at the time, and maybe the disdain. And now I'm wondering, like, where is that history? Like, why do they not supposed to mess with the Moabites? And I'm pretty sure there's a reason for, like, maybe the Moabites didn't help them in a battle one time. There's something happened, but the history of Moab and Israel becomes really important to me. and something that I would want to take some time looking in, because I think there's a really significant reason for all this animosity towards Moabites in particular. Okay, yeah, it's 8 o'clock. Wow, that kind of ended perfectly. Um, this has been Bible study with Pastor Charles. This is how I approach texts. This is when I'm preparing a sermon. This is how I start reading. And typically, I would read a chapter like 5, 6 times, um, kind of just highlighting all the places that make sense to me, and or that don't make sense to me, places where I have questions in the text, things I don't understand. And some of those questions have really simple answers and aren't really that interesting once you get to the answer, but some of them have really interesting answers and take you on wild goose chases throughout the Bible, and so you never know. So um, shout out to Sister Allen and Lajana for giving me this idea, and my wife, to do this little Bible study style type thing. I hope it was beneficial for y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed it. And yeah, let's go ahead and pray. And I will see you all in a couple days. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for all of us who are here, for the word. Thank you so much, Lord, for giving us eyes that read slowly and ears that listen patiently. Lord, we are earnestly trying to dig and dig and dig into the word and find any part of you that we might have missed, that we didn't get before, Lord. We are trying to sit in the word of God and see what you would say to us on today, Lord. And Lord, I thank you for what you have given us. I thank you for the insights that you have shared with us. Lord, I pray that you keep us safe, keep us healthy, keep us nourished, and may we see each other again on Saturday, Lord. We love you. We praise you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank y'all for rocking with me, and happy Wednesday.